Good afternoon, brothers and sisters. When I say undocumented, you say unafraid. Undocumented! 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 Thank you. Every time I lead this chant, it gives me chill. Because if you really think about the phrase or the slogan, undocumented and unafraid, it's very powerful. Undocumented and unafraid. In fact, there are thousands of undocumented immigrants face fear of deportation. But several years ago, there's courageous undocumented youth stepped forward and proclaimed themselves that I am undocumented, unafraid, and unapologetic. And because of their effort, they stood up and shared their personal immigration story, contacted elected officials, signed petitions, even conducted a civil disobedient action despite risking facing deportation, and led hunger strike. And because of their effort, as Ken Wong mentioned yesterday's session, the DACA was implemented last year. And because of their effort, now there's a comprehensive immigration reform bill was introduced this year in 2013. And I'm optimistic and I'm hopeful that with our collective effort, we will pass a fair and humane comprehensive immigration reform this year in 2013. So we know the importance of youth and organizing, and so I want to acknowledge undocumented folks who are in the room. So can you please stand up and acknowledge yourself, the work that you have done? Please stand up, don't be shy. Stand up. Stand up, stand up. Thank you, thank you. I myself, as an undocumented immigrant, I was born and raised in South Korea until I was 11 years old. I came to the United States from South Korea with my single-parent mother and my older sister. And ever since then, I grew up in San Francisco Bay Area. And I attended Leong College at Oakland, where I became the first Asian American student body president. And I transferred to UC Berkeley. And at UC Berkeley, became the first undocumented student senator. Became the first one undocumented senator in UC Berkeley history. And last year, I graduated from UC Berkeley with a degree in political science, becoming the first in my family to graduate from college. And now I'm pursuing my master's degree in public administration because I believe public service is important, and we know that youth need to step up and continue to support not only immigrant rights movement, but labor rights movement with our collective effort to win successful campaigns. That's why I'm here today, and I know that I will not be here and I will not be who I am today without the support from APALA and many different nonprofit organizations who supported me throughout this long journey. And I'm saying this because I hope that you will continue to support youth like me, to continue to engage them to attend APALA Convention, help them, train them and mentor them to become a next leader. Because ultimately, they're the leading the way into building our future, and they're the one who will continue to build the momentum and continue to build APALA's legacy. And so, with that being said, we understand that youth organizing is important, and we have very amazing speakers who are here with me today, who have been leading campaigns for national legislation to protect the rights of workers and union members and strengthen the voice of immigrant communities. And these speakers will talk about youth organizing and forging alliances. And so with that being said, I would like to introduce our very first speaker. His name is Alex Kong. Alex's family immigrated to San Francisco, Chinatown in the early 60s, where they lived and worked to make ends meet in Chinatown. Returning to work in the community at the Chinese Progressive Association has been the realization of a lifelong dream. And growing up in the San Francisco Bay Area, Alex became politicized through high school youth leadership programs, and in college, organized around worker justice and educational justice issues like union contract fights and affirmative action. And after college in 1999, Alex worked at a Center on Policy Initiatives in San Diego and formed Students for Economic Justice, a student and labor solidarity organization that ran campaigns on campus and the community to supporting SEIU and United Here workers. And in his ripe age of 37, Alex Tom is a self-identified elder, and he's currently executive director of CPA. And lastly, he also serves on the leadership committee of the San Francisco Rising Alliance and the executive committee of the Job with Justice in San Francisco. So without any further ado, please help me big welcome Alex Tom.
How's everyone doing? Good. People in the back hear us? Yeah. I'm just gonna first say something to the Chinese-speaking folks right here. 我好高興見到大家因為好難得有呢種一個機會俾大家嚟參加，所以不過我今日用英文講 ，OK？ Thank you. So what I want to do, this might be a little bit logistically challenging, but I wanted to just give another shout out to all the young people, dreamers, queer folks in the room. Stand up, and if people could actually reach out to someone next to you, maybe a little older, and just shake their hand, give them a fist bump. I don't see anyone doing that. Can you all just stand up and just, because this is such an amazing and beautiful space, and we got like cultural workers, we got immigrants, we got workers, I already said that, we got organizers. Give each other, it's like church, it's like, it's not Sunday, you might not be religious. Okay, all right, people feel good? And keep doing that, okay? Because it's like you just see young people and you see other people, you're like, you don't really like reach out, but you should, right? Because this is the movement we're trying to build, especially in the Asian movement, is very intergenerational, right? So I just wanted to make sure we did that. And last night I was very honored to just be in the space at the gala because I could really see and we could all feel the giants in the room and the shoulders we're all standing on. And the fact that you all are here still in the movement, APALA is really modeling and showing how we can truly honor and grow leadership in our community. And I really felt that yesterday, and I just want to give you all props for that. Give yourselves a round of applause for that. A little bit more about myself is like, I was an activist in the 90s, got politicized by all those really bad propositions that were attacking immigrants, workers, queer people. And my family actually, we're not from the union. My mentors weren't from the union, but for some reason I landed in a union job working for SEIU and HRE and doing student labor solidarity. So I kind of want to ask the question, it's like, why did that happen, right? And many of you probably did not think you would land in the labor movement, right? In the unions, right? Like, why would you invite working 60 to 70 hours a week, right? That's pretty bad. Why would you want to be the only Asian, right? Probably the only one that speaks the language. A lot of racism, probably, right? This is all real, so why? So I have my answer that I wrote down, and then we'll see if it matches your answer. I was very inspired by the movement, right? The entire movement. I was inspired about the fight against sweatshops, 1999. It was really big. I was inspired by the fight for janitors, justice for janitors in year 2000. Yeah, it's okay to clap. You could also snap. Like, I learned a lot from the younger generation. You could snap, you could twinkle, you could raise the roof. And also I was inspired by worker centers that are now leading the way, right? And that was like, that was like 10, 15 years ago. And that's when I met Aki, that's when I met Kiwi, bunch of folks, and we're still in it, right? And we're inspired by the movement. So at CPA, we are still dealing with a lot of things, right? Because our members are still not getting paid minimum wage, facing wage theft every day. Thousands in our community are working 60, 70 hours a week for $5 to $6 an hour. And San Francisco, so-called most progressive city in the country, has the highest minimum wage at $10.55, yet our members are still not able to get that, right? And so it's a very challenging situation because they feel like they're slaves. They do not feel human in this society. And this is happening in 2013. This is what Paul was talking about. This is why we're here today. And so we've done all the things around community labor alliances, we've done electoral work, we've taxed the rich, we've done some really good things to scale up, and we have done it, right? And it's not enough. It's not enough because, like many people have been saying here, all the folks have been saying this is about the long haul, right? It's about the long haul. So how do we strengthen the pipeline for the long haul and to make sure that we can keep that fire in the belly that we have, how to keep that alive? So we started 4 years ago, the Eva Low Fellowship Program. So can the Eva Low Fellows stand up? Where are they? Okay, whoa, front and center, okay. That's how we train them, right? So Eva Low Fellowship was named after Eva Low, who was a shiro, unsung shiro in our community, very fierce, who organized in the 30s, one of the first worker centers in San Francisco, in the US, and she also organized in China as well. And she always told us that we need to be fighting for the underdog, okay? And so that's the spirit of the Eva Low Fellowship. And for us, the Eva Low Fellows, we also call them the elves. They made up their own name, is that they actually land in unions, right? But it is not a pipeline for unions. It's a pipeline for the movement, right? And I just want to make that distinction because it's really important. We're investing in them as people just to grow in the movement, and hey, they land in unions because that's probably where most of the jobs are, right? But it's also a place like APALA where people are making connections and to grow that kind of leadership in a new way. Now, for us, it's also about having a very sharp analysis because our generation actually has inherited the worst of capitalism, of this system, and everything from the environment to the inequality in society is the most unequal in history, right? Now that's deep. Because the rise of people of color, they have repealed the Voter Rights Act, Stand Your Ground laws, Trayvon Martin, and all this is happening here when the United States is pivoting towards the Asia-Pacific area, putting all their military resources, looking to pivot towards. And when we say pivot, we know what that means, right? And so I think as Asian Americans, we actually are more important than we think. And this task of the pipeline, of the new generation, of all of us in this room, is much more important than we are saying, right? And I know we all think it's important. I just want to emphasize that in the 21st century, when labor is in decline and there's rise of people of color, we got Obama in office, but deportations have doubled. Right? We're still in a very difficult place. And it's very hard as young people in our generation to keep the fire in our belly alive and to keep us inspired. And I want to just say that the reason why our Eva Low Fellowship Program works is not because of our trainings, right? I mean, not because of trainings. You could say the trainings are good, but it's really about the mentorship and the modeling that exists in the older generation, including myself, right? It's an intergenerational way of how we're building leadership. And I think that's what we're seeing here at APALA, and that's kind of what I've experienced here. And I just think that, just since my time is running up, I just want to say that I want to give props to APALA for really leading the way. You know, it's like the NBC campaign that was just a couple years ago, winning back $10 million in back wages, right? To investing in the Dreamers, on DocuQueer, all the new cutting edge movements right now. This is what the movement needs to do, and APALA is actually leading the way on that. So I want to give all the leadership just my gratitude in actually being able to be here today, and it's an honor to be on this panel. Thank you.
Thank you, Alex. Thanks for your work. And I have to say, you don't look 37. I don't know what type of skin product that you're using, but if you could tell me your secret, that'd be great. There we go, water. That's a solution. Moving on to our next speaker. I'm very honored to introduce our next speaker, Ainee Leong. Ainee Leong is from Seattle. I'm currently working in Las Vegas as a research intern at the Culinary Union Local 226. She's a recent graduate from the University of Washington, earning her bachelor's degree in American Ethnic Studies with minors in Labor Studies and Diversity. She was introduced to the labor movement in high school when the APALA-Seattle asked her to phone bank for the 2008 caucuses. Since then, she has continued volunteering and working with Seattle chapter. While in college, Ainee was a summer organizer with United Here Local 8, working on external and internal campaigns. She provided assistance and worked with Chinese members to become more connected to the union. Ainee continues her work with United Here in Las Vegas and through a different aspect of organizing. So without any further ado, please help me big welcome Ainee Leong.
Good afternoon, everybody. Alex already did the how are you, so I know how everybody's doing today. But I just want to say, first and foremost, I'm really honored to be in this panel with, all these young folks here from all different backgrounds and doing what they do in their respected organizations. And just to be up here and speaking with them is, great to connect. And it's about organizing, about youth connecting, and this is a great space that we all can do it in. So just kind of a background about myself is that I am born and raised in Seattle. Just graduated from UW, like Drew said, and now I'm here in Las Vegas working for the Culinary. I consider myself half union baby because technically my mom's a union member, but my dad is not. So I have had through my life seen the difference of having a union mother and then having a father working in Chinatown restaurants through barely making minimum wage and going through those struggles that workers go through when they don't have a union. And I've seen that, and I've seen those struggles we go through, and I was fortunate enough to have health care, to have a good wage for me to be able to go to college, to get through schooling, to get through my life to where I am today. So I've been really honored to be able to continue the fight for everybody to have a life like mine, to have those benefits and have insurance, to be able to be sick and go to the doctor without worrying about how much it's gonna cost because my mom has to work or my dad has to work in order to pay for it. So I've been really honored to be able to continue to struggle for those who still don't have union membership. And we know that because of the reality of the density that we all are living in right now. So I just really want to emphasize a shout out to APALA and Unite Here for really taking on the youth organizing aspect. Because like I said, I've been part of the APALA since I was 17, 18, doing phone banking. If somebody asks you when you're a high school girl to phone bank, of course you're gonna do it. And get paid for it, that's better, even better. So I've been doing it and working with APALA since then. And it's been 4 or 5 years now, and this is my third convention. So I was here in Vegas 4 years ago, and we were the youngest crowd. Me and my brothers were here, 18-year-old fresh out of high school, ready to take on the world as, freshmen in college. And we were able to get exposed to this wonderful space that we're able to talk to folks and meet folks from all different backgrounds. And it really inspired me to continue to work in the labor movement, but, as naive as I was, I didn't know exactly what that meant. Because labor movement isn't the sexiest, movement to be a part of. It's hard work, and I'll tell you that. And I know my sisters from Local 8 can tell you it's not easy. So I've been able to be an organizer too, and it has really been an honor to work with folks and be part of a union that really emphasized on getting the youth out there, because I was part of an organizing Beyond Barriers, which is our internship that really reaches out to high school or college and students to really get them involved and understand what it takes to organize and what it takes to be part of the movement without, full-time diving right in. Okay, 2 minutes. But it really opened my eyes, because for me, seeing my mother because she is a member of the Union of Local 8 in Seattle, and she's been there for over decades. And seeing her be able to organize her friends and her coworkers and move them to be able to fight back for the company as they negotiate their contract is such an empowering moment in my life to see my mother do that. And by the way, me and my mother are on the cover of the program if you want like a picture reference of who I am. So throughout college, I was able to volunteer and work with Unite Here and be able to get my skills of organizing up, because it takes a long time, and I know some people are still learning, and I'm still learning from seasoned veterans or seasoned experienced folks, and how to really connect to those communities and how to be able to get out there and organize, because sometimes it's still a little nerve-wracking, because as a youth, it's hard to organize some of your respected elders, because you still have that barrier, kind of like, okay, they're kind of my parents, so I should be respectful, but still push them to come to a rally at 4:30. So that's always something hard to go through. But I just want to really emphasize, youth, y'all should just come and do it. Just join the movement, because it's a great thing that we all are workers, whether we are students or whether we are workers physically, or we just all are workers, part of this movement, and we need to make a change for it to benefit us, because right now it's not. And so we need to really unite and struggle together and put ourselves in power, put ourselves in positions of power, and to be able to make changes for ourselves to benefit ourselves, because who else is going to do it for us? Nobody. So we got to do it and take it into our own hands. So anyways, thank you so much, and yep.
Thank you, Amy. Next off, I'd like to introduce our third speaker. His name is Biko Baker. He's the executive director of the League of Young Voters and a nationally recognized leader. Based on Milwaukee, Baker's a pioneer in running city-level, data-driven voter turnout campaigns that dramatically increase the voter participation of young urban citizens. A leading voice on field campaigns targeting young African-American voters, Baker serves on Circle's Research Advisory Board and is a board member of the New Organizing Institute. He is also a well-known communicator around election, as well as cultural and political issues, including gun violence and voting rights. In addition to being a formal contributor to The Source, he has appeared in major mainstream media, including CSPN, Fox News, and CNN. So without any further ado, please help me be welcome Biko Baker.
It's so hard for me to stand behind podiums, but I'm going to try to do it. I'm really honored to be here. I consider myself a member of the labor movement, and it seems like Alex and I came into the movement at the same time. I moved to LA in 2000 and arrived on UCLA's campus after a lot of these attacks on affirmative action. And I got to LA and my world was changed. I grew up, how many of you have ever heard of Milwaukee, Wisconsin? Thank you for raising your hand. Not very many of you raised your hand. Milwaukee is in the middle of the country. It is, according to the US Census, the most segregated city in America. Black people live in one space. Latinos live in one space. White people live in one space, and then there's a growing Hmong population that lives in the hood with black people. And the unfortunate thing is that even though as a leader with the League of Young Voters, I've been able to travel for the last 10 years, and my idea of what America looked like has changed. I've been all over the country, except for mostly parts of the Northwest, and have seen young people of all backgrounds fighting to change their community. And I'm hecka proud of what's going on. I know that young people get credit for 2012, and I know they get credit for 2008, but there's been a trend since 2000 that's seeing young people increase their election. And I'm so proud of that, but I know that we have a lot of work to do. As Alex was talking about, young people are now leaving college campuses without jobs. In my home community, 50% of the African-American males do not have jobs. I have friends who are 30 years old who have never worked in the formal economy, would likely never work in the formal economy, and are every day waking up and are told that we live in a place that values diversity, values justice, and values equality. But I believe right now we have a huge opportunity. And I said this a little bit last night, but I believe we have a huge opportunity. Just like the brother Kiwi was up here rapping and using hip hop culture, I know that when I travel, I see young people who are using the language of culture to bring people together. And I think we can bring that in the labor movement like never before. And I have 3 things that I think we should be doing to get us all engaged. I was told you always got talking threes because after 3, no one remembers. The first one is we have to embrace tech. If you have your phone in your hand, lift it up. Just put your phone in there, because everybody's got one. Some of y'all are tweeting right now and texting, although the internet service in here is not as good as I would like it to be. I've been told that we have more computing power in our phones than what went to the moon. Think about that. These cats went to the moon, and we have more power in our phones. And I know that it's bigger than just texting or social media. Last year, the League of Young Voters registered 8,000 people online. In a matter of short months, we built a text message database of over 30,000 people. And in places like California and Virginia now, there's full online registration. And we can reach people like never before. And I know I'm a seasoned organizer, and I've done a lot of door knocking and one-on-ones. I'm not seasoned yet. Dang it, I'm trying to get there. But I feel seasoned. I was around when we just had Access database to keep our data in, so I know that we've come a long way. But if we are able to use the technology, we're able to keep the conversation going long after that point of first contact. So I encourage everyone who's leading an organizing campaign to really think about SMS. It's the only, or text messaging, it's the only form of contact that people can't ignore. You get 100% open rate, whereas in email, if you're sending out an email rate, around 15% of email is a good email, and you get 100% contact. The second thing we need to do is break silos. And every time I see Kent Wong, gotta give him a shout out. But in 2002, I was in the UCLA's first summer internship project. And I grew up in a segregated city, as I said, and we went to the Longshoreman action. We went to a lot of actions. And I feel some kind of way because there was these big, burly, white biker dudes. And I was actually I have to say I was pretty angry because growing up, those are the same guys that if I would go in their town, they would call me the N-word. Or when I traveled to their community to play sports, they'd run us out. And I learned the history of the Longshoremen and how strong they had been in fighting for people of color, not just here in the United States, but all over the place. So from that time, I've really learned that we have to break silos and let our prejudices down. And we see this with young people. If you go to a party or hip-hop show, it's going to be people with all backgrounds at the show. And I believe we have to do more of that. And while I feel it's great to represent our diversity and our nationalities, as young people, we're all poor and broke. And I think that can bring us together like nothing before. Yes. Raise your hand if you're not broke, because my organization does need money. We will ask you for a donation. Yeah, none of you guys did that. Okay. The last thing I think we need to do, and this is especially to the young leaders in this room who are like myself, grew up sports, hip hop, too cool to really try in high school. We have to run for office. Run for office. And here's why. In my home community, when we first started doing organizing, when I came back in 2004, no one wanted to pay attention to us. No one wanted to pay attention to us. They tried to ignore us. We show up to their office with 30 people. They tried to ignore us. We get press. They ignore us. Until one day, we were in a room, and when our city council wanted to pass a gang ordinance, was basically an anti-youth law, criminalizing youth. Basically, 2 or more young people in the room, the police had to, or on a street corner, they had the right to break it up. If you refused to break up, they could take you to jail. I was in a room, I was 26 years old, and I said, facing the city council, I said, turned around, looked at the crowd, and I said, if you are a young person and you're gonna be 18 by the next election, raise your hand and stand up. And it was a room of about 150 people, about half the room was young. The entire room stood up. And we lobbied and argued. They eventually knocked the gang ordinance down. And they did it because they knew that there's this rising American electorate. Over those years, I've seen our access to government has grown. We bring young people. We had a poetry contest in our city hall. I was actually given an award by the city hall. I'm telling you, 8 years ago, like I said, they did not want it. They had nothing to do with me. And I believe if we do this, we can fight back and push back some of these things. I know everybody's talking about redistricting, but in 10 years, we'll have a huge opportunity. Over the next 3 or 4 elections, young minorities will be the majority in the electorate. And if we're able to be brave, be courageous, and study what's going on, not only on Twitter, not only what's going on in reality TV, but study the budgets, study what's going on in our state capitals, I believe we can have a wave of progressive change and completely change this room. But we have to stick together. You know, when I'm in here, and I've been so blessed to have traveled and been able to work in community, I don't really see race or nationality. And I know a lot of you in this room are like that. And I believe through the power of the vote, we can change America. So if you can do that, we can change things. I want you to do one more thing before I get out here is take your phone out. And I want to prove and I want to be an example of breaking boundaries. If you take your phone out and text Biko, B-I-K-O, to 69866, as much as I'd like to charge you, there's standard rates apply. There will not be any extra donations. If you text Biko, B-I-K-O, to 69866, we'll be able to stay in contact, stay connected. 69866, like in the phone number. You know, my cell phone number is 213-925-1545. In that spot, you just put 69866 and there's Biko. And you should get a text from me because I want to stay connected to you guys. I believe we are the future and we can change it. Thank y'all. I'm going to talk slowly. Biko, B-I-K-O, put that in the text body, to the number 69866, 69866, and I'd like to stay connected with y'all. Thank you.
Thank you, Biko. Unfortunately, you guys, he is married. So just text him or call him over a business related. So, okay. My wife is in the movement. She's cool with it. Okay, she's cool with that. So there we go. So I'm honored to introduce our very last speaker. Her name is Ainee Athar. She's a personal friend of mine, and she has a very inspiring story to share. Ainee is a recent graduate of the University of Texas, Austin. Ainee was brought to the United States at the age of 2, and she became undocumented after she was denied for an asylum, which resulted in final order of deportation. Activism and community justice are a lifelong passion for young dreamers like Ainee. She turned this frightening turn of events into an opportunity to build the power of the immigrant community. Ainee has spoken at multiple labor events to discuss the need for alliance between immigrants and the labor movement, and is an advocate for humane immigration reform that restores dignity and justice for oppressed communities. Currently, she's based in Austin, Texas, where she's seeking opportunities in lobbying, public policy, and grassroots organizing. So without any further ado, please help me welcome Ainee Athar.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for having me today. And I just want to say thank you to APALA and to all the organizations here that have been so supportive of undocumented youth, allowing them the opportunity to get involved with the labor movement, to develop their skills, and just to share their stories with you. So thank you guys so much for everything that you've done for us. So I want to start by talking a little bit about DACA. When President Obama announced DACA last June, it was not a magic bullet. You know, he didn't wake up one day deciding to suddenly help undocumented youth. It was the result of years of public pressure and strategies that we developed in our community with very little resources. And most importantly, it was the result of years and years of building relationships with labor, with community advocates, with grassroots organizations, and even with corporate allies. So we did all this by raising our voices, by sharing our stories, and by being undocumented, unafraid, and unapologetic. For the past few days, we've heard a lot from undocumented youth, some immigrant workers, and allies about life in the shadows. We heard an amazing spoken word poem yesterday from Akiko. We heard Ju's story, and we heard Eve's story too. So let's give them a hand real quick. From the beginning, Asian students have been at the forefront of this movement. They have laid the foundation for the fight that we're fighting in Congress right now. Queer Asians built a digital network that allow us to tap into thousands of people at the click of a button, that allow us to send petitions and legislative actions instantly to thousands and thousands of Latinos, to African immigrants, and to allies across races, across identities of all sorts. We work with labor organizations. We ask our parents to tell their stories. We encourage women and queer youth to take strong leadership positions in all of our organizations. We march with the Dream Defenders in Florida to resist anti-Black violence, and we also organized in New York to be allied with Latino and Black individuals who have been targeted through stop and frisk. So today I want to share two stories with you that really show how central Asian youth have been to the fight that we're fighting in Congress right now. The first story is Teresa Lee's story, and this is a story that not a lot of people know. Teresa Lee is a Korean Brazilian individual who is actually the inspiration for the DREAM Act. She was born in Brazil. Her parents had moved there from Korea, and they couldn't get papers in Brazil, so they decided to move to America. She became undocumented in America, too, even though she was brought here when she was only 2 years old. Now, she's a very accomplished musician, and once she reached high school, she realized that she couldn't attend music school professionally, she couldn't get a job, she couldn't do anything that she wanted to do her entire life. So she cultivated allies through her school, and she reached out to senators across the country, and that's where we got the DREAM Act in the year 2001. So the next time someone asks you, what does immigration reform have to do with Asian Americans? You tell them Ju's story, you tell them Eve's story, you tell them Teresa's story, and you tell them that we were one of the first people to raise our voices about this issue. The second story I want to share with you is my own story. I was born in Pakistan, and at the age of 2, I was brought to America. There were a couple of really big reasons. Even before I was born, my parents knew that they had no future left in that country because they're part of a Muslim community that is very, very persecuted. When I visit home in Houston, sometimes my parents tell me about relatives and family members and community members who still live in Pakistan that have been murdered or are being, oppressed in very, very violent ways. My family members have lost jobs. They've had their houses burnt down. They've had all sorts of opportunities denied to them because of their religious beliefs. So they knew that when my sister and I grew up, we wouldn't be able to go to school. We would face violence just walking down the street. And if we ever wanted to openly express our religious beliefs, we could be sent to jail or even murdered, and no one would do anything about it. But the catalyst for the move at the age of 2 was actually that I was diagnosed with cancer. And in Pakistan, there was no hospital in the 90s that could treat cancer in children. So my parents knew that I would die unless we left that country. So we moved to America, and we had an asylum case pending for a very, very long time. When I was a sophomore at the University of Texas, our asylum case was denied. And we began the really, really complicated process of appealing the case and trying to get asylum because at this point we are stateless. We are not really Pakistani citizens because of our religious identity, and so we had absolutely no place to go. Unfortunately, there was a clerical error in the immigration courts, and this resulted in ICE raiding my parents' house at 5 in the morning on November 4th, 2010. They detained my mother and father. They took them to immigration detention facility for more than a month, and for about 6 months after that, they had to wear these really clunky, ugly ankle bracelets so that ICE could monitor them wherever they went. We were placed in final orders. We were given final orders of deportation under a program that is meant to target the most violent criminal immigrant offenders. And even though we had no such criminal record, because of the country that we're from and because of our religious identity, we were targeted under this program because we were viewed as a national security threat. So this is very important for me to tell you because the violence that South Asian immigrants have faced after 9/11 is appalling. And it is a really important part of the work that we're doing here and across communities all over America. And it's a really important part of why immigrant justice is an Asian American issue. So my family has final orders of deportation right now, and my story doesn't end there because there's this bill in Congress that claims to solve all these problems. While there's a lot of good things in this bill, there are a lot of things that would also increase the violence that people face at the border. It would increase the violence that undocumented workers face, and there's a lot of things that would just harm our ability to become citizens. My family cannot spend the next 5 to 15 years paying into healthcare for US citizens, but being denied the exact same opportunities that they have worked for. But I don't want to just say that this bill is bad or that this bill is good. I'm not really interested in having that conversation at this moment. But what I want to say is that we need to talk about, and very critically, the good and bad aspects of this legislation. Because whether or not it passes, this fight is not going to end. This is not the end of the road. And the most important thing that I think we need to remember is that this is not really a fight for immigration reform. This is a fight for economic, for social, for gender, for racial, for immigrant justice. And this is a very different thing than just immigration reform. So just to end, I think I want to talk about a banner I saw yesterday at a march that I think sets the perfect frame for how we need to talk about immigration as we go back to our communities and try to bring the issue of legalizing 11 million undocumented people to our communities and to our labor unions. There was an SEIU banner that I think said it perfectly. All we want for ourselves is what we want for all. Thank you.
Thank you, Ainee. Can we give another big round of applause to all the speakers who are here today? Thank you. And as you can see, youth organizing matter, and we need to continue to invest in youth to continue to move forward to have a successful campaigns and take broader steps moving forward in APALA and national campaigns. And with that being said, we will conclude with our collective action, and Ainee will just quickly have the collective action that we will do it right now, and we'll conclude with this plenary.
Thank you. Thank you again. So as a collective action, and echoing what Biko said of using technology, I've seen everybody take their phones out, so take your phones out again because we are going to do a tweet to Cosmopolitan, as yesterday we marched and we were physically there. Now it's time to hit them with the social media thing and just flood them with telling them to sign the contract and give their Cosmo workers a good contract for that matter. So up here is the tweet we want everybody to send out. And it says, tell Cosmopolitan LV to respect their workers. And it's a link to a video that we released of kind of a intro to what the owners of Cosmopolitans has been saying in their meetings. And so it's that you can check it out. It's a very short clip. And then we add Culinary 226 and then hashtag APALA-Con13. And we want everybody to send it out so we can flood their timeline. Because, we're using technology. We're the youth. We love tweeting. That's what we do. We were tweeting up here. So we're going to utilize this and flood it. And everybody needs to send it right now.